So let's get started because we have a lot to do and they will filter in. Hi everybody. Thank you all
Hi.
for thank you all for being here today. Welcome to the Jewish Collaborative of Orange County's Advanced Learning Institute. We meet Mondays 9:30 a.m. and 12:30 Pacific time and 12:30 a.m. Eastern time, which is where I am. We feature many great scholars from across the country. Jewish Collaborative of Orange County is a creative collaborative and um, and and compassionate community mosaic that dedicated to, I love this blurb, to innovating and supporting local and national programming that enriches the landscape of Jewish life and encourages individuals and families to connect with their passions and purpose with Judaism. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sylvia Conant. I'm a largely self-taught artist. My knowledge of Jewish art and artists throughout history is largely due to my own interest reading, visiting museums, and taking various online classes. It has become one of my passions. So, who and what I've chosen to talk about today is subjective, highly subjective. I may include artists you don't know and neglect artists you might have included. So let's use this time to learn and teach each other. I'm going to talk for a minute about the Enlightenment, and then we'll go on looking at pictures, discussing learning, and here we go. So for a minute, I'm going to talk at you. I'm going to give you a little blurb on the Enlightenment because this is where we're starting. Um, the Haskalah, or Jewish Enlightenment, was an intellectual movement that lasted about 100 years, from about 1770 to 1880. Haskalah philosophy, like the Enlightenment of the non-Jewish world, was based on reason, intellectual, and secular culture and philosophy became the essential value, values. Haskalah began in Germany, Poland, and Central Europe, and it later spread to Lithuania and a few provinces within the Polish settlement. But the non-Jewish Enlightenment of Western Europe helped us in that it led to the emancipation of Jews. In 1770, the gates of the ghetto at Trieste were torn down. In Prussia, II allowed Jews to engage in professions not previously open to them, to attend universities, and to hold teaching positions there. There were the Napoleonic codes, I would say, from France, which were later rescinded after he got exiled to Elba, but there was still plenty going on. So let's start. Um, Madalena, could you share the first screen? Okay, then go down one. This is Daniel Moritz Oppenheim. He lived from 1800 to 1882. And as those of you who were here yesterday might remember that I put him up last week because there's an article or two out there that said the first Jewish painter. And what they really meant was the first Jewish artist to receive an academic training in the arts or life. So, and during his lifetime, he had never converted to Christianity in order to make money. Um, but his style of painting largely reflected the romantic movement of his time. This painting we see is a self-portrait, which is very much reflective of the romantic style, as does the second painting, which is coming up in 1 second. There it is. That's Moses and the tablets. I'm a little worried about my friends here, so I'm going to just take a look, see what happened. Uh, Madeline, that didn't come through. that email. Uh, Come back, back. Yeah, we're gonna stay right there. I'm just saying that the email that you sent out for my friends there, never, I never got one. So if you could help them out, that would be really great. For here, thank you. Um, so what you see here, what do you see here? What do we see in this style and his paintings? And we can go back up to the next one if you like. Um, what do you see? See anything interesting?
Um, are you looking for comments?
Yes, I am. That's why I'm asking questions.
Okay, didn't hear you. So what's
Asking
interesting to
questions.
me, what's interesting to me about this particular painting is, they always, I know people that think that Jews have horns, and I look at this picture, and because of the rays like that are coming off his head, seriously look like that's what it looks like to people that don't know any better. And I'm really wondering if this way back then is where these people got that idea. I mean, I've actually been told, listen to a conversation where I couldn't stand it anymore, and where they were talking about people that have, and I said, "Would you like to go? By the way, I'm Jewish. Would you like to touch my head?" So seriously, but so I just what kind of shouted out to me for seconds. All right, and he's pointing to the commandments, to a particular commandment, which I think is really interesting. That's all I have.
That's good. Thank you. And I think that one thing that you might, and Jonathan might figure this one out too, is that these paintings, and the other one maybe even more, show the particular style of his time, which is the Romantic style. So he didn't divert from that. And especially in all of his works, um, were either depicted either biblical scenes or scenes of Jewish life, which reflected middle class values and respectability, as well as emphasizing the values of education and culture. And you can see that in the previous screen. Could you bring that back up, Adeline? Adelina, the previous screen. Okay. No, no, that's the next screen, the one before. Not this one, the one before. Go up. And the one before that. That one. You see, this is a husband. It looks like a husband and wife. This is actually more. It's Oppenheim, and it turns out he's never been married, so that's why his wife's name doesn't come up. But it looks like his wife, right? So what one of the things he was trying to do was tell the world that and build an image of Jews in Germany as nice, respectable, middle class people, not so different from you. We're all the same. But one thing that was interesting to me for him was that he in every one of his paintings or lithographs or etchings, he wrote a commentary on the state of the emancipation of Jews and how, because they're still discriminated against and they didn't have full citizenship rights, how they needed them and what the struggle was to get them. Um, he never shied away from that. In 1871, the um, we got them because of the unification of Germany. Once the unification of Germany took place in 1871, we were accorded full rights of citizens. And tragically, about one-third of his work, um, uh, of his whole work, which was a considerable 350 paintings, think about that, were lost. However, much of his work found their ways out of Europe after 1933, the baggage of people emigrating to safer ports. Today, you can find many of his most important pieces either in the Jewish Museum of New York or in the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. As the 19th century came to a close, it was the expansion of the free market that freed many artists from the obstacles that hampered them in that. Until then, most commissions came from either the aristocracy or the church. Picasso once said, artists are of two types, copiers or revolutionaries. And now we can go, yes, thank you. Now we can go to not the next one, but the one after. That one. Okay. Marc Chagall, 1787 to 1985. He was born in Vitebsk, Russia, which actually had to a very, he lived in a Hasidic community. And in Russia, the Enlightenment hadn't shown up, and we were still living as we had for many years. We weren't allowed to go to public school. We had very limited opportunities to do anything. When he finished his Jewish education, he got ready to go to high school. His he wasn't actually permitted to do that, but his mother, I guess who saw something in him, got him in by paying a professor 50 rubles to admit him and teach him. Professor took money and fun. But until that time, amazingly, to me anyway, um, he had never, ever seen a piece of art, not a drawing, not a painting, nothing. But when he started seeing them and learning about them, then he was hooked. And somebody else saw something in him too, because he was um, given the right to go to St. Petersburg to study the Imperial Society for the Protection of the Arts. In 1910, he moved to Paris, where he became friends with Guillaume Apollinaire and Robert Delaunay, pioneer exponents of Fauvism and Cubism. His first solo show was held in 1914. That's the one I want next. Thank you. At their Sturm Gallery in Berlin. This is one of my favorite paintings of all of his works. I don't know, it just gets me. I love it. It's called The Drunkard. What do you see in The Drunkard?
You say the drunkard?
What do you see? What's your feeling? What are you seeing?
Well, not to be crude, I see the knife is close to his privates, and alcohol will do that to a gentleman.
Yeah, yeah.
Presumably, that's what he's trying to say with that.
Uh,
And
Give me 1 second here. What about the table?
And that's interesting. The bird, the fish, and I'm not getting the context of that. The liquor, yes. I mean, I understand the bottle, you know, and the face, because that's the face that's off of the other faces. So he's faceless over here. His face has been moved over to the drink. But I can't tell if the bird has like, oh, wait a minute. I'm looking at the bird backwards. I was almost looking at the bird the wrong way. Now I see his eye, but if you look at the tail end, it almost looks like a beak with something in it.
That's right. Yay, two-headed bird.
It's a double bird. It looks like a double bird
That's right. Anybody
with
else got
two faces.
anybody else got anything? Uh, okay. Well, here's this two-faced bird, and I would say, let me tell you one thing. Remember what I said about Oppenheim and everything that he did harked back to something in Jewish life, in his Jewish life. Chagall was the same, and everything he did, he put in memories of his life in Russia. Okay. All right. So we got a chicken and a fish and maybe a Shabbat table. I don't know. I mean, possible. That's my interpretation. But more importantly, there is this movement in you didn't see any depth to this. That's correct, because it's one of his very, very first professional paintings. Um, and yeah, this yellow and kind of weirdo colors. That's kind of a nod to Fauvism, which was a very popular uh, style in, and so is this, in Paris about 1905 and somewhere in the teens. Um, Fauvisme means bestial or bestiality. So it was a nod to that with that. Also, it included some bold, not so popular colors. There's that. There's something else. Got a head up here. He's got, it's not quite, is it not quite Cubism yet? When Chagall was in Paris, that's coming up. When Chagall was in Paris, he he was friends with the Cubists and he did some Cubist kind of works, but he was never actually involved with, he never got into Cubism as a whole. So this is one of his learning experiences. So he's not quite Cubist yet, and he never was. And he's not quite Fauvism yet, and he never was. Um, all right. So yes, Madalena, you can put up the next one. Um, so there was no, my friends can't get in because there's no, there's nothing there. That I don't know why that didn't work, Madalena. Um, here's another. This is no, no. Go back up. Go back up. Yeah, and back up one more. No, I'm missing one. Okay, go back down. All right, that's fine. This is um, a, a cover of a book that his wife, Bella, wrote called Burning Lights. And it was reminiscence of the his life or her life. She grew up in the same village. And he did all the um, illustrations. And it is I own it. It's a really charming book. And has wonderful illustrations of um, life back in um, in um, in Russia. Belarus is what it became. And that's, one of his things always. And I don't want to spend too much time with Chagall because there's so many things that I want to talk about. We'll go to Sonia, um, because we needed to talk about. Um, this is Sonia Delaney. This is Right, I do. She's from lived from 1885 to 1979. She was born in Odessa to Jewish parents, but was adopted by her wealthy uncle from the age of 5. She grew up in St. Petersburg, and she subsequently studied at the Art Academy in Karlsruhe, Germany, and then at the Academy de la Palette, just I assume where she met Robert Delaunay. She married him. Um, and here, her early works reflect. Do they remind you? Does this remind you of anybody or anything? Anybody remember Paul Gauguin? The yellow weirdo, um, to us, to me anyway, paintings from the South Pacific, and he did the nudes, and um, they were exaggerated, but they had those really different colors. So she was influenced by him. She was also influenced by Fauvism there, but like Chagall, she wasn't content. She learned many things. And if you will go to the next, um, yes, on the left is called a simultaneous dress from 1913. This was she created to dance a tango, and but it was defined as a living painting and a sculpture of living forms. She designed this dress and her dresses by joining together small pieces of fabrics in different forms and textures. She combines simultaneous colors with prints and paired luxury fabrics with coarser textiles, shortened hemlines, and lightened shapes, achieving a modern image. Is it beautiful? And here on the right, from 1920 something or another, 25, um, this was originally called Trois Femmes Forme Couleur, and she renamed it Simultaneous Dresses. Same reason. Left to see the front, see the outside. Go back, please. Don't do that. Not there. Thank you very much. Um, she became a dress designer for quite a few years because after the revolution in Russia, she stopped getting money. So she and Robert had to start earning money. And that's one of the ways they did. They were quite successful at it. But she actually um, was a very influential artist in the 20th century. I'm going to read this blurb. Her diverse and interconnected body of work focuses on primacy of color and a synthesis of the arts. Her work included not only painting, but fashion design, textile books, mosaics, and tapestries. In the 1970s, Bard College mounted a retrospective of Delaunay's life work with a request from collectors to lend them examples of her work. They collected over 200 works, from paintings to textiles to tapestries to fashion to bronze sculptures and oven-kiln pottery. So this is an example. One of the reasons I'm showing you her is because beautiful stuff is that um, art critics kind of dismissed her as um, as a crafter because she used textiles. This dress, which is actually a canvas of the dress, um, was made by her on a loom. Learned to do weaving. She did anything that interested her in the art world and in beautiful ways. So on and up, onward and upward. The work of artists of the 20th century incorporated the shared realities of pogroms, wars, and persecutions. And then if anybody has to say questions, whatever, please talk. And I can't see you if you raise your hand, so you're just gonna have to talk. Um, and Madeline, if you can give us the next slide. That's it. This is from Felix Nussbaum. He was born December 11, 1904 in Osnabrück, Germany. He was murdered at Auschwitz in August of 1944. His career was, that I know about, was that in the 1920s, he moved to Berlin to pursue his art. And I haven't seen any examples previous to this painting. What do you see? What do you think?
You see destruction and despair.
Uh-huh. All right. So when I looked at it, the first thing I looked at it, knowing his history, I the first thing I thought was crystal notch. Yeah. But he said that what he was doing was trying to depict the disaster to all the Jews of Europe. And I think he kind of did. So that is black and white. And that in 1938. The next one that's coming up. I mean, that's it. Thank you so much. This is his self-portrait with the Jewish identity card. You can't really see the card, but he painted this after he had been arrested. Quite highly amazing, if you ask me. And what you see in his face, what you see about this. Serena, please.
Yeah, the previous picture, I was just thinking that it was so interesting. But when you think of a disaster like that, it could depict anything. You know, when you think of that, you could think of Ukraine today,
Yes,
and you're looking at the same thing.
that's
So,
correct.
yeah,
Because he was particular but universal as well. Um, to when I see this self-portrait and I see the great disaster, I think what a what an artist this man could have become had he lived. It was already to me. This was this. What do you see in his face?
Suspicion?
Say it again, Jonathan.
Suspicion?
Suspicion. Okay. Anything
Anger?
else? Anger. Yeah. Oh yeah, I see that. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very vivid. I think that he shows himself right there. Um, I showed this at Armenian a few months ago, and somebody said they saw fear, and I suppose it is, but I see the anger more than anything, really. Yeah, I think he was outraged that this was happening to his people, and who wouldn't be? So go on. Um, yeah. Anything else? Okay. So if you can bring up the next one, Madalena, that would be very cool. That's it. This is Charlotte Solomon. This is Kristallnacht. Her she was born in 1917 and died in 1943, where she was murdered at Auschwitz. She was a German Jewish artist born in Berlin, and in from 1941 to 1943, while hiding from the Nazis, she made 769 individual works painted between 1941 and 1943 as part of her autobiographical series. Which was called Leben oder Theater, ein Singspiel, Life or Theater, a song play. And just before she was arrested, she entrusted the whole body of work to a friend. In October of 1943, 5 months pregnant, she was arrested, deported to Auschwitz, and murdered shortly thereafter. What do you see there? Go back. Go back. I'm not there yet. Thank you. Um, what do you see? That writing up on the left-hand side.
I would love to know what the writing means, but I mean, you can see the glass on the ground on the right-hand side. Throngs of people. Throngs of people wondering what the heck's going on.
Criminals.
Jewish, yeah.
Take all that they can.
Right. Was and go ahead.
Sorry, I'm unsure about the figures at the windows and whether they're coming in or going out, or going in or coming out, or if they're just flags. Or I'm intrigued.
I am too. I'm thinking that they are people. They are people. And are they going in to loot the places? Which is kind of what happened after Kristallnacht, right? The Germans went right in and looted everything. And the Jews, I don't think we could get anywhere near where we wanted to get. I see little pieces in the back that I don't know if you can see, little details where it looks like there are military holding back the crowds. Or perhaps just it's us just raising our hands in despair. That could be too.
The whole thing feels very violent.
Yes.
Well, I made it. Oh, go on.
No, I just think it's the image at the forefront with the guy kicking the three guys forward that sets the tone for that.
Yep. And also the colors, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you make it bigger, if you enlarge it, which I just did, it looks like people have their arms up. On the right-hand side, it does look like looters in the gray, kind of more in the gray colors. Yeah.
Torch.
But I don't think the front line is really military.
Okay. And John,
people.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Oh, there's fire. There's a torch in the center. You're near the center of the painting, and there's also some activity that's sort of grayish, brownish, which could be other fires, but not as bright.
Yep. All of that happened. And so interesting that you got so much detail in there in the figures. Kind of reminds you of who is that 15th century painter? Bruegel, when there was all these little people all over his paintings. Yeah. Boy.
It's noisy as well. You can almost hear the noise of it. And the guy in the left hand corner who seems to be overseeing the whole.
Just to the right. The orange guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
I found it very strange that Kristallnacht is usually portrayed by the damage to synagogue, and here it's like buildings. So that's an aspect that we are not so familiar during Kristallnacht.
Well, that's one of the main things that happened during Kristallnacht was that the Nazis came through and smashed all of the windows of all of the buildings in that neighborhood, all of the businesses, anything that was on the bottom floor, not just the synagogues. It
Right.
was total disaster.
Definitely smashed all the businesses that were Jewish, and after that, Germans took them over. They never gave them anything for it. And in the writing, of course, the only thing I can read is the top line, which is Jews forbidden, Judah verboten, something like that. Judah.
No,
I think
You know what it says, Jonathan?
The criminal Jews. Take all that you can.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So
I was
they
looking
were
for. I was
Germany.
looking for that.
Yeah, so apparently the Germans were encouraging the other Germans to take everything out of there because the Jews were criminals anyway.
So because of that, I would think that all those figures are actually going in to loot the buildings.
Well, maybe, or because go ahead.
Sorry, I'm looking at those figures, and I'm thinking more and more they're flags. Because to the left, I mean, obviously you can think anything you want them to be, but to the left, I don't know, that just looks to me like a Nazi flag.
Could be,
Yes,
Rosalie.
you're right. The left on the bottom for sure, where the little white
Yeah,
circles are with the black in between. It's like a swastika.
yeah.
Yeah, and soldiers in gray trying to hold the crowd back on the right side. So soldiers in gray. Yep. Here. Well, you see that. So yeah, this is pretty fascinating, I think. Another example of a young woman. I mean, what? She was born in
I find it amazing that she did that many paintings in how long? 2 years?
From 2 years, 1940. Well, yeah, she was hiding in the
I mean,
woods.
that's like a painting a day. She was doing a painting a day and being this intricate.
Yeah, and
Being
all of
this
her,
intricate is
yeah, all of
it's
her.
amazing that she did that many paintings. It's like
Yep,
mind-boggling.
yep, it sure is. Um, and they weren't big scale; they were smaller scale, but still, it's an amazing body of work. Um, so I'm saying that she was born in 1917. She was murdered in 1943, which made her young. Imagine what she could have become had she been allowed to live. Real tragedy. So let's move on to because we are getting low in time. Let's move on. And if I could get um, the next slide, there we go. This is I love this portrait, this picture of Lee Krasner, 1908 to 1984. And this was her painting called Untitled. Anybody remember who Lee Krasner was?
Jackson Pollock's wife?
Yeah. Yes, she was. But more than Jackson, that was the problem with the abstract expressionist movement. Is that as soon as the guys came along, the women were relegated to somebody's wife. And that's exactly what happened to her. She was she was born in Brooklyn. She was to an Orthodox Jewish family, but she went to school and she studied with Hans Hofmann, and she was a member of the Artists Union and American Abstract Artists, and she was very engaged in the New York art community in the 30s and the 40s. And her career was moving along. But in 1945, she married this guy, Jackson Pollock. And during the 10 years of that marriage, she was overshadowed by him, but was determined. She continued to work. And while she was working, she produced the series Little Images. Um, but Krasner, like many women married to male artists, were routinely dismissed as women who merely imitated the work of their husbands. The series, the Little Images, she painted while they lived in Long Island, a property in Long Island. His studio was this big barn. She painted in the bedroom. So a lot of her works were very small. Um, when she did a show with him, 1949 or 1950, I can't remember, and her work was said to have been, this is the art critique, a pale imitation of her husband's work. Yeah, so here's what she did. She took it all home and she tore everything up and she left her studio for days. And then when she came back, she found out what to do. And she put together this beautiful collage and paintings, and several of them like that. Um, that's what she did. Whatever she had is what she's going to do, and she was brilliant. I mean, she was just brilliant. Um, she's now considered one of the most significant contributors to the abstract and expressionist movement. Um, I read an article that said, and after he died, she devoted her whole life to preserving his legacy. Might have done something like that. However, here's the clue. He dies in 1955 in a car wreck. She's in Europe. She comes home. A year later, she takes that barn of his and she put all his stuff away somewhere in storage. And she took the barn for her studio. So, she's opening up again. And she did, and she did, and she did. In 1965, she had her first solo exhibition at the Whitechapel Gallery in London. They're always smarter than us. And in 1975, at the Whitney Museum of American Art, she died in 1984, a few months before her retrospective opened at the Museum of Modern Art. You can see her work today at the Museum of Modern Art, New York, at the National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C., yay, yay, and also in the Jewish Museum of New York, many other places too, but these are on permanent exhibitions. So I have 10 minutes. I could do two painters real quick or one painter not so quick.
One painter.
One painter. Okay. Well, this is George Siegel, and that would be real quick. And the only reason I brought him in there is because, you know, he was my high school teacher, and I like him.
Oh.
But if
Ah.
you scroll through his work very quickly, Madalena, give us the next one. Yes, he was known for, that was my favorite of his, but the other one was a detail from the Holocaust Memorial, which is now in San Francisco's Lincoln Park. It's been there. Used plaster casts, and painted with this over with plasticine. It's a very effective tool. But so the next one, let's come back. Yeah. That is Abraham and Isaac, which he made, which is bronze, um, this is bronze cast, and it is called Abraham and Isaac in memory of May 4th, 1970, Kent State University. You all remember what happened then, right? You young people might not, but you should. Kent State University, and this shows a lot about George Siegel, is that he was involved in life and social issues, and that's what he did. He just wasn't up there in a high tower there. Um, Kent State, May 4th, 1970, was when the first time American troops turned on citizens. 4 people were killed in that. That was an anti-war demonstration, and it got a little rowdy. But the troops turned on them and shot not in the air. They shot into the crowd. 4 students were dead within minutes. Changed the trajectory of our country. Really did. Because after that, it was kind of scary to go to because I've been to a lot of those in my day, but it got a little scary to go. So, homage to George Siegel. All right, we'll go to the next one so we can do this because this I really want to show you. Judy Chicago. Judy Chicago, born in 1939, still working. For is a feminist, contemporary artist, still is. And I show you this where there's so many things to show you, but Chicago, that was not her name. Her name was Judith Judith Cohen. Judith Sylvia Cohen. Okay? She was born to Arthur and May Cohen. Her father had was in the 23rd generation of rabbis from Hasidic rabbis from Lithuania, including the Vilna Gaon. But he said, "Nope, not for me." And he was very involved in the union movement in the workers' rights, and he was investigated by the McCarthy era, whatever, because he was a commie. Made it very hard for him to get work. He died young, when she was young anyway, when she was in 1953. And she loved her father very much, but a lot of what she did reflected his sensibility. So her coming to feminism is not a big surprise. So I want to tell you a minute about her. Go ahead, Serena.
That is an exhibit or a painting or what?
Oh, well, we're going to talk about that. I'm just introducing you to her. This work, the dinner party, is the third wing and there's other wings of a setup, which is now in the Brooklyn Museum, that shows where they put together each place setting is an homage to women throughout history, or herstory was her word, actually. And there was place settings. There were plates and tapestries and everything you can name to honor these women. And the whole the whole setup starts out, you walk in, and there are these fabulous banners. Um, this took 5 years to make, and she didn't do it by herself. The entryway banners, ceremonial tables representing the important female historical figures. There were heritage panels highlighting the contributions of the 999 women on the floor, and acknowledgement panels that identified Chicago's assistants and collaborators. Together, these components celebrate the many aspects of women's history and contribution. And I want to say that Julie Chicago, one of the things she gave us is collaboration. She gave us that women together empower each other and themselves. In the 70s, she went to Cal State as a professor, Cal State in Fresno, and she started something called the Women's Studio Project, open to women, and which is still operating. She and her collaborators did this amazing building in interior of a building in San Francisco called Woman House. Every 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 room was filled with what women's lives were like all through history, and whether it was in tapestries, whether it was in paintings, whether it was in um, sculpture or pottery, whatever. Um, the dinner party was in 16 venues, 16 countries, 3 continents. It is now permanently housed in the Elizabeth Sackler Center for Feminist Art at the Brooklyn Museum. What?
Where museum located?
Sorry?
Where is that museum located, her permanent exhibit?
Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Museum in Brooklyn, New York.
Thank you.
United.
I didn't hear that part.
Next time I go there, I'm going to go there. Last time I went there, I went to the
Me
Jewish.
too.
Be amazing to see that.
Yes, yes, it is. It is just, I can't imagine. So, we have a couple of minutes left, and I can leave this open for anybody who wants to talk to me for a while. Um, but for me, the singular most, she did a lot of stuff, and you can't just, I mean, you could do a whole year on her and her work, but what she did for women and for men too, for women, was to um, teach us how to empower us and to teach us how to empower each other. You know, that you're an artist, go do it. Here, come do this with me. Um, and she didn't, you see this, you would see, and in her other projects, that all of her collaborators are always credited. Um, I just adore her. She's
Having, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to say, having just come back from Israel and visiting Hostage Square and seeing the bit, I can't help but be reminded of I'm sure you've all seen images of the big Shabbat table set out for all the hostages, and how gorgeous this one is that what's her name, Judy Chicago's done, and how stark the one in Tel Aviv is, and it's just I'm just thinking about the likeness and the difference of the two things, and the importance of meal times.
Yes.
And how
Yeah,
it's
totally.
throughout. Yeah.
Yeah.
For both situations.
Yes. That's great. Thank you. Hi. So, and Rosalie, you look like you're going to say something, but you're on mute. Okay. All right. I'm sorry you didn't get here earlier.
It's
And I
hard
hope,
when you're on the phone to find the unmute.
well, and yeah, that too. And she had a problem because she didn't have a link.
Thank goodness it's on tape, so you can go back.
Oh yeah. Um, so all right. So this comes to the end. So much art, so little time. Hope you all enjoyed what you saw and we learned something from each other. Oh, there's Donna. Donna's look behind Donna. Donna, you got to get out of the look behind Donna.
Yeah. So my question
Oh,
is, when
wait a
did
minute, wait a minute, wait a
Chagall
minute,
go
wait a minute,
from
wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Let me finish. Um,
right? Sorry.
yes, stained glass Chagall. That's Donna. Donna, she's got all 12 of them because of needlepoint. She did those all herself through needlepoint. Of course, I mean, he did the design, obviously. He's up in Metz, and several other things. And that's what we can say about Chagall. Yes, he did everything, but um, there is a woman who took what her talent was and made this beautiful art. This
You.
this is stunning.
Wow.
When I go visit, I'm always glad to visit Donna. Love Donna, but I always stand in front of these going, "Oh my God, how did she do this?" They're stunning.
That's really interesting. I always thought it was Prince of Chagall. That's what I just love that. That's fantastic. I would
No,
love to see that person.
No, they're uh,
of Donna's life.
yeah. Um, um, Rosalie,
So
can
my
you unmute?
question is, when did Chagall go from I mean, I know that all artists, I mean, I have artists in my family, so I know they transition from different medias, to what they want to do. So he transitioned from Cubism to um, Judaism, paintings of a lot of Judea. When did that all start? Or did he
Started right
always do
that
both?
he no well, he did very little cubism. He that painting is a nod to cubism, but it's not actually cubism. It's a nod to Fauvism, but it's not actually Fauvism. And I would surmise, this is my guess here, is that the painting, because he put a table out with um, chicken and fish, and that's a nod to his way of life in Russia. And all of his paintings and anything he did reflected that um, in some way or another. They weren't, but yeah. And by the way, when he came to the United States, it was in 1940, because he was living in the south of France, and nobody actually understood that France was going to fall to the Nazis as quickly as it did. And it was not easy getting him and his wife and his daughter and son-in-law out of there, but they got because he didn't have a lot of money. He was just a painter.
If you've ever been to Israel and seen seen the Chagall window, it's like mesmerizing.
Yeah,
It's unbelievable.
they're also in Europe. They're in Metz, I think. Um, so yeah, they're he did.
Also, Chagall had Varian Fry. You know, he saved an awful lot of people in Europe who he thought were like the top of the top. And
Yes,
Chagall.
yeah, he was very involved. And that I would say that for what I found here is that artists were involved in what was going on, not just, but in all kinds of social issues, but they're involved in life, and they weren't actually shy about it. Rosalie, you made it to unmute, so say whatever it was you're going to say.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to Ava and what she had to say about the hostage square. I was just in Israel. I didn't get to Tel Aviv. It was my grandson's bar mitzvah, and so I couldn't get there. But I wanted to. You said something that it didn't look anything like Judy. You made a mention that it didn't look anything like Judy Chicago's painting. Could you just detail what it was like there? Because
that Shabbos table that's set out for all the hostages, it's very stark.
Okay.
Whereas Judy's is so, I want to say, voluptuous and gorgeous, and there's so
rich.
much, so rich, yes.
Yes.
For each woman, for each person, but the table in Hostage Square, for each person, it's that person and that person and that person, you know.
So it's stark on purpose.
Yes,
okay.
I was just in Israel also, and we did go to Hostage Square, and we also went to some museums on an art tour, and some of the museums had like 8 places to a table, but this was like 200. I mean, it's great, big, long, and of course it was in the drabbest of, chamois colored, military like material. It was very, very unhumane, inhumane. It was mechanistic, very sad, very depressing, very hopeless rendition of what the hostage life was, what it would be like to be a hostage, and what our country is like to have.
Sounds like they were trying to depict it very realism.
Yes.
It was of cherry, so there was no beauty to it. There's no beauty to being a hostage.
Thank you both so much for describing it. I just next well, I hope there is no next time when I go, but I go there once or twice a year to see my kids. Okay, thank you all very much.
Mazel tov on the bar mitzvah.
Yes.
Thank
and welcome back. Nice to
Thank
see
you. Talk about, on Friday night services, I'm going off track, but we're off time anyway. On Friday night services, my son-in-law talked about at the very end how they had a hard decision as to whether to go on with having a physical representation of his bar mitzvah, with people, etc., or not. And they decided, after discussing it, with my daughter, that, you choose life. You have to choose life in any of these situations. And that's what they did. And his bar mitzvah was Monday. Oh, what are we? It's 2 weeks ago today. It was Monday, and then there was a celebration Monday night, and everybody really, well, the kids really rocked out with, I can't tell you what they were doing, flips and stuff like that. It was not social dancing at all, but it was adorable. And they choose life, because what can you do?
That's right.
That is true. Actually, somewhere, I'm not sure where, I'm not going to quote because I don't know, but I know that it's true that in Judaism, you choose life. If bad things happen before weddings, before any celebration, it still goes on. You don't stop it because someone passed or there was a catastrophe. You keep going. You keep going.
Right. Thank you all. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Sylvia, last half hour.
So much, Sylvia. It was really informative. I love the teaching, and I also have to go, so we'll talk. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Yes. I could tell that it was really good today. It was great last week. We learned so much. I think we could relate more, to this Holocaust thing.
Oh, yeah.
The horrification of it. The Kent State. I have to say that Kent State statue, if you didn't know the story of Abraham and Isaac, it brought it to modern terms. It was very, very good, by George, what is it, Segal or Siegels?
George Siegel, and when I introduce him, I always say George Siegel, not the actor,
Not the actor, right?
the
Yeah,
artist.
that was
The artist.
that was very good.
He
With
was
his
very
with
he
his
was,
pleading, he was pleading with his father.
right,
Yeah.
right, and he was he was he was a great guy. When he was teaching, he was involved in uh, he was he was involved in the Jewish Community Center because um, he would take he would have kids from the JCC come out to visit the studio and talk about what art was and what he was doing and stuff like that. Even after he became Mr. Pop Artist, that was the thing, pop art. Um, and that's what pop art was, really. Talking about what was going on in the world, the real world, the commonplace world, you
And
know.
you mentioned, and I sort of never put it together, but you mentioned that that was the beginning of our that Kent State episode. I think I was just too young to get in my head. I was too young to get involved. I was having kids at the time.
Oh, you're having kids. I was.
What was going on there and what it represented, but life's never been the same since then. In this,
Nope. Nope. That's exactly true.
yeah.
And um, I was really young too, but I wasn't having babies, so I was happily out there being in causes.
Well,
And
you were a rebel, and I wasn't in those days.
yes, I was. Yes, I was. And you know, I made a little zine a few weeks ago, and as I was doing this class, I thought about it because the cover was rule number one: there are no rules.
Oh. That I'm going.
All right. With that, I'm going. Sylvia, it was great. And I will listen to the first half. I don't want to miss it. Thank
Yes.
you for your.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Sylvia.
Thank you, everybody, very much.
Thank you
It's
so much.
wonderful to see you.
You okay?
Bye.
You